The word autopoiesis comes from the Greek auto, self, and poiesis, making, and it means self-production. The autopoietic system is defined as a network of processes that produce the components, which in turn regenerate the same network and create the system's own boundary. Cells are autopoietic because they continuously reproduce their components, maintain homeostasis, and preserve their identity despite ongoing internal challenges. This self-maintaining capacity allows living organisms to sustain themselves over time. Materna and Valera first introduced it into theoretical biology to explain conjugative and the incessance of life, and later it spread into general systems theory, mathematics, conjugative science, neuroscience, and information systems. An autopoietic system sustains itself by continuously producing its components, defining its own boundaries, operating independently through its internal organizations rather than relying on the environment. Nicholas Luhmann introduced autopoiesis into social systems theory, moving beyond Parsons' input-output model of society. For Luhmann, the smallest non-decomposable elements of social systems are communication, not individuals or roles. Social systems reproduce themselves by generating ongoing chains of communication, while human beings belong to the environment of social systems, not as a direct part of it. The self-organization follows a circular logic, giving rise to biological autonomy and operational closure. Life from single cells to organs, multi-organisms, and social systems can be seen as a network of independent autopoietic units. These systems interact structurally with their environments, co-creating and adapting over time. With cognition emerges a part of organization. Death and aging and evolution are natural aspects of these dynamics.
Autopoieses are able to interact with their environment in many ways, allowing them to adapt and evolve. One way would be through structural coupling, where an autopoiesis system does not passively receive input from the environment, but they instead interact in a way that maintains their internal organism. Consider the dynamic between the education system and its students. The system reproduces itself through curricula, teaching methods, and institutional frameworks. As students engage with it, they interact with the system, all while triggering changes like learning a new style and feedback loops. Yet the system tends to adapt only in ways that preserves its core identity, often through standardized testing and accreditation process. Structural determinism is another way for an autopoiesis to interact with its environment. It's the behavior of a living system that is shaped by its internal organization rather than dictated by external forces. While the environment may provoke changes, it cannot determine the specific nature of those changes. For example, let's consider how different individuals respond to touching a hot surface. One person might instinctively pull back in pain, while another person, perhaps someone with nerve damage, may not register the same sensation at all. The key factor isn't the heat itself, but it's the structure of the person's nervous system. Whether fully functional or impaired, it is the internal organization that determines the nature of the response.
Let's take a look at what social autopoiesis is. Social autopoiesis was pioneered by Nicholas Luhmann, who described it as social groups producing communication networks and rules to be able to function as a system. Some of these social groups can look like sports teams, such as the Los Angeles Lakers or Azusa Society program. So how does social autopoiesis work? Let's take Azusa Society program as an example. This program was created around rules and traditions for its members to embody. When a new member enters this program, these components will shape the individual to fit into the program's needs to succeed. Essentially, these rules and traditions serve as communication networks within its members. So now that we have an idea of some communication networks that happen within social autopoiesis, do they have boundaries? The answer is yes. Similar to a cell having a membrane that protects the cell by controlling what goes in and out, sort of like a security guard, Azusa Society program has its own set of boundaries, due to the usage of enforcing policies, values, and beliefs that dictate who fits into that program. Overall, social autopoiesis helps us understand how groups have survived, changed, and grown over time, while also finding ways to assist those social groups, such as cultures and governments.
What is life? Life can be understood through the concept of autopoiesis, which means self-making. Living systems sustain themselves by creating boundaries, repairing, and regenerating their own parts. For example, cells are considered alive because they self-maintain, while viruses are not since they need a host. In practice, death has been defined differently over time. Historically, it was when the heartbeat stopped. Today, it's often measured as brain death or a flat EEG. This raises ethical issues in medicine, like decisions around organ transplants, life support, and when to stop artificial treatment. What is death? Death occurs when this self-sustaining process breaks down. It's not just one organ stopping, it's the disintegration of the system as a whole. The body loses its ability to function as a unified system, even though some cells or organs may briefly keep working. This diagram demonstrates the systematization of 3 dynamic modes of the autopoietic unit, representing the homeostasis, reproduction, and death of a cell.
Cognition is the process of knowing. It's how we understand and interact with the world around us. When cognition is disrupted, our understanding can be affected. In terms of neuropsychology, for example, if there's a brain injury around Wernicke's area, that connection can be impaired, which is responsible for understanding and interpreting the language. That might lead to an aphasia and make it hard to comprehend words. Varela coined a term called inaction, which simply means that if the structure exists, the way of interacting with the environment will also exist because they're inseparable. They're 2 sides of the same phenomenon. For example, anxiety shows that mind and body are inseparable. Anxious thoughts trigger to physical symptoms, such as nausea or stomach issues or numbness, and so on. So why is triology of life so significant? It matters because life is not solely reliant on self-maintenance or recurring processes, but also on the dynamic process of interaction and adaptation, making us thus understand that living organisms interacts with the environment in a cognitive way. There are different components attached to cognition, like perception, emotion, and behaviors. For example, sensory perception. Nothing happens on its own. There's an entire system for things, and we are part of that system. If there is no cognition, there is no knowing. If there is no knowing, there is no meaning to life. Thus, cognition becomes the next evolution.
In psychology, these ideas apply to how we understand trauma and grief. Just like a cell or body system can break down, trauma can disrupt a person's sense of self. Therapy helps reorganize and rebuild this system, restoring identity, meaning, and resilience.